Google just dropped Android 17, codenamed Cinnamon Bun. If you are waiting for a massive, unrecognizable software overhaul, you can stop holding your breath. The days of breaking the system down to the studs and rebuilding the interface from scratch are over. We used to wait all year for a new alphabetical dessert name to drop at I/O. The aesthetic redesigns were the main event, celebrated with massive statues on the Google lawn. That was the peak of the hype-driven update cycle. But while Google still uses those dessert names internally, the public-facing superhero marketing campaigns have quietly faded out. This timeline charts Android updates from version 1.0 up to 17, and it shows exactly what replaced that hype. Notice how the curve for radical UI changes flattens out entirely in recent years. In its place, the curve for iterative refinement climbs sharply starting around Android 12. That leaves us with a dilemma. We still expect grand visual redesigns, but the reality is a steady drip of compound quality-of-life updates. So ranking these new features by how cool they look isn't helpful anymore. Instead, we have to route these updates through specific user workflows to figure out their actual return on investment. We are looking at 4 specific types of users: the workflow optimizer, the content creator, the hardware specialist, and the generalist purist. Figuring out if Android 17 is a good update for you requires an honest audit of your daily habits, rather than checking to see if they added a shiny new coat of paint. Let's start with the heavy multitaskers and the native social content creators. These are the users who stand to gain the most time back from their devices. This comparison matrix tracks the specific friction points Android 17 solves. For the optimizer, the standout feature is the new bubble bar. You can now launch any app directly into a floating window and minimize it into a bubble. You can have up to 4 of these active at once, effectively treating your phone screen like a desktop light multitasking hub. But the trade-off is steep. Taking notes while a YouTube video plays in a floating bubble is great, but it requires completely retraining your muscle memory. On a standard slab-style phone screen, 4 floating bubbles generate a significant amount of visual clutter. Next, we have the creator archetype. Google added a Show Selfie Camera toggle directly into the native screen recording menu. The outcome here is immediate speed. You get a live keyed version of yourself that you can resize and move around the screen while you record. You entirely bypass the need to export your screen grab to a third-party app like CapCut just to build a reaction video. Relying on the native OS tools gets you to the finish line faster, but you sacrifice the advanced pacing and dedicated editing tools you'd get from using those specialized social applications. Both of these features offer massive workflow acceleration. You just have to decide if you are willing to conform entirely to Google's native UI constraints to get that speed. That brings us to the final 2 groups: early adopters of specialized hardware and the purists who want hyper-clean, frictionless daily interactions. For the hardware specialist, Google added a new game mode designed explicitly for foldable devices, like the Pixel Fold and Z Fold. Mechanically, it maps the bottom half of the screen into a digital gamepad. This leaves the top half completely unobstructed for gameplay. It is a clever use of the hardware. However, it is entirely useless to anyone holding a traditional flat phone, and it relies on active third-party developer support to actually function across different titles. Finally, the purists get a host of aesthetic tweaks. You can now long press to customize the transparency of the persistent search bar, hide app labels on the home screen entirely, and explicitly dictate which specific apps are forced into dark mode. But bringing back our comparison matrix, the biggest win for the purist is right here. Google finally separated the Wi-Fi and mobile data quick settings toggles. You no longer have to click into a unified internet menu just to turn off your Wi-Fi. Digging through the menus to hide labels or customize widgets requires a brief manual setup investment, but doing so solves the most universally hated daily friction points we've dealt with for the past 3 years of Android. Taking a step back, the overarching narrative of Android 17 is clear. Google is finally prioritizing direct user feedback over pushing theoretical design philosophies. Plotting these features on an effort versus impact chart shows their value. A dedicated Wi-Fi toggle lands firmly in the low-effort, high-impact corner. Power user tools like the bubble bar and foldable game mode sit in medium-effort, high-impact. The clear winners are power multitaskers, early adopters of foldables, and those frustrated by UI friction. But temper your expectations. If you're waiting for a sweeping visual redesign or massive native AI leaps from this specific drop, you will be disappointed. Treat Android 17 as a highly effective tool sharpening kit. Spending 20 minutes configuring settings today yields massive returns in daily workflow efficiency all year.